Alright, this is my video about what I would do if Nintendo was dumb enough to let me make their next Mario movie. Why not? So my first thinking when I was kind of saying, okay, what would I do in a sequel? I was saying, okay, well, what worked in the first Mario Brothers movie? And I don't mean like specific. There are lots of details and little things you could say, well, this worked and that worked. I'm talking big picture. At the most zoomed out level, what did it get right? First off, it was joyful. I think this movie and Top Gun Maverick have both kind of shown that audiences are done with the nihilism and they just want to go back to joyful movies. Second, is it didn't try and reinvent the wheel. It didn't try and produce Citizen Kane. It kept things traditional and stuck with very tried and true storytelling techniques. What do we got here? Well, we got the hero's journey. Mario is our hero, and he's thrown into a strange new world. While in that world, he meets the wise old sage, played by Princess Peach, and she helps guide him on his journey. And then he makes companions in the form of Toad and Donkey Kong to help him on his journey until eventually he can defeat the evil space wizard, played by Bowser. Finally, he even gets the girl at the end as icing on the cake. So, by sticking to these very tried and true storytelling techniques, what they were able to do is allow the IP itself to be the star of the show, right? You weren't distracted with complicated storytelling because the focus was on the strength of the IP itself, and in the end, it seemed to work. So I was like, okay, if you're gonna do a Mario Brothers sequel, I think you stick with what works. You keep it simple. What has a proven track record? And of course, that would be the romance. And frankly, 30 years has been long enough, Nintendo. It's time. Give those kids their happy ending. And also, I just like a little spice in my storytelling. A little pizzazz, you know? I'm so done with nihilism. Just give me my happily ever after already. And I don't want my characters all acting like a bunch of weirdos with no sex drive. And obviously, I don't mean that in like a vulgar way. Like, you gotta keep it like sweet and innocent. But give me a little something. Give me a little bit of that salsa. I don't want just a bunch of bland we're friends the whole time. That's just boring. All right, so let's talk about how I would do my Mario Brothers sequel. So the standard model of a romance is you got two kids, they're in love, something happens to mess up the relationship, and then usually you have them physically separated before they can resolve the conflict. And then the story is them coming back together and seeing if love was able to find a way and they can work it out in the end. So, with that in mind, I think I'd start off with a nice action scene. You know, Wart or something has invaded the Mushroom Kingdom, and our intrepid band of heroes have to go take him down in just an exciting, fun opening action scene. Probably just have Yoshi be part of the group at this point. He's not that complicated of a character. I'm just not convinced you need to devote a lot of screen time to the first movie's teaser. So I don't know. You could replace this action scene with a scene of them discovering Yoshi, but that would be less exciting. And once Wart has been defeated, I'd throw in some nice visual cues, you know, things that imply, okay, there's something happening between Peach and Mario. They got a little bit of a bond going there, you know, something a little beyond what the rest of the characters seem to have going between them. Now, of course, Luigi would have probably been noticing this between them for a while, so when you switch scenes to back in the brother's house, he'd bring it up tomorrow. Be like, I notice you and the princess are getting along pretty well, you know? So he'd convince Mario to, you know, man up and ask her out. So then you could imagine there would probably be some kind of official celebration that night at the castle. So Mario and Luigi show up. You see more of this kind of cutesy interactions with Mario and Peach, reinforcing because this is one thing that I think is important whenever you're doing these types of love stories or whatever is when you know you need to break the characters apart because that's how a love story works, right? You have to break them apart. If you don't break them apart, there's no story. It's just, oh, they date and then they're happy. Well, okay, great. You know, you have to break them apart, and that's why I think the more you convince the audience of how perfect they are for one another in the early threads of the movie, the more impactful them being broken apart works at the end of the first act. So I would also make it obvious that like everyone's just kind of waiting for it to happen, kind of doing a meta joke on how Nintendo fans have been waiting for this to happen. And of course, while they're there, Mario asks Peach out. Of course, she'll say yes. Then you have your big montage date, and the montage date would just be a wonderful excuse for massive nostalgia dump onto the movie, right? It would probably be like, oh, I'm going to show you Brooklyn, Peach. Let me meet the family, do all the things, whatever. And you do all kinds of wacky stuff, right? They're at the movie theaters, and what's the movie? Oh, it's a superhero movie with the Wonderful 101, right? Oh, what are they doing next? Oh, they're at the beach and they got the cartoon artist and they flip the cartoon panels around and it's Paper Mario, Paper Peach, right? You could go all day with that. Just nostalgia dump, whatever. It's like sugar for the movies, but we all love it. So give me my sugar. At this point, I would intercut their date with the arrival of Bowser Jr. This is to set up a relationship between him and Peach that will pay off in the second and third act. We can also finally have Peach give the line that she really should have given back in Mario Sunshine, which was, no kid, sorry, but I'm not your mommy. But for now, he just makes demands that Peach release his daddy, and then when she says no, he tries to grab her arm and force her to follow him, and of course, this is where Mario would step in. Now, the purpose of all this scene is for something that first time watchers would probably miss, but then catch on a rewatch. Because I kind of like this idea that when Bowser Jr. grabs at Peach's hand, it actually causes a bit of a, I guess you call a mini panic attack reaction from her. So bear with me a moment. I really want to give Peach something to overcome in this movie because it makes characters more endearing like 100% of the time. And I feel like Peach would probably have quite a bit of deep seated emotional trauma from years of kidnapping and abuse from Bowser, right? The guy has been subjecting her to this weird mixture of like love and abuse her entire life. So maybe that manifests whenever people make grabs for her, right? Whenever someone makes a grab for her and she's not expecting it, she just gets this mini panic attack. So this concept would be set up at this scene, but not properly explained to the audience yet. The explanation comes later. So after they depart Bowser Jr., you then head back to Mario's house. We get to have that fun scene where we get to see Peach interacting with Mario's family, which I think would be a lot of fun. Anyways, the point is, you get back to the end of the day. Mario and Peach return to the castle, and this is where everything's supposed to go so right, right? Mario has worked up his courage. He's gonna confess his love, all that kind of stuff, right? So this is where we pay off the previous scene with Bowser Jr. Because what does someone do when they typically, will confess their love in the movies and whatnot, right? They'll usually grab the girl's hand. And this isn't an act of aggression, it's an act of endearment, right? They're trying to show their love, but you can imagine if Peach wasn't expecting Mario to make a sudden grab for her hand, it might trigger her panic attack and she'd yank her arm away from him. Which, of course, for Mario would be a devastating moment because he would, of course, assume, oh, she doesn't like me at all, and I've clearly been misreading this whole situation. Mario's now devastated. As far as he can tell, she just not just rejected him, like she acted like she was disgusted to even be touched by him, right? And now Mario, he's gone. He is freaked out. He just runs. And, after Peach kind of comes back to herself and realizes what just happened, she has her own panic, confused and upset by what happened herself. So you kind of have the two of them traumatized by what was supposed to be this beautiful moment between them, completely ruined by this panic attack. And now you, of course, because I'm a sap for emotional storytelling, you have those like two scenes working in parallel, right? Of like Mario being consoled by Luigi after, as far as Mario can tell, he was just like hard rejected by Peach, and then Peach being consoled by Toadette because she doesn't even understand what just happened. She just knows that she ruined everything and she doesn't even understand why. Like, obviously, this is where the physical separation comes in, right? This is a fairly resolvable circumstance, right? And Toadette would probably reassure Peach of this, like, look, you broke his heart, but this isn't permanent. This isn't you. You go down, you explain to him, you can salvage the situation. It's not as horrible as you think it is. Of course, that's when it becomes horrible. While all this is going on, Bowser Jr. has regrouped with the Koopalings and decided Mommy won't release Daddy on her own, so we're going to have to go in there and get Daddy out. So right as Peach is getting ready to go back tomorrow and, fix the situation before too much time has passed, Bowser gets released, and you have this awesome fight scene of Peach basically running around her castle, taking out Koopalings, fighting Bowser, and let her go full warrior princess mode. It would be awesome. She should have a custom built umbrella that was built for combat, and this would be where she whips it out. And we get just a really awesome scene of her just running around the castle, just kind of being a badass. Of course, she's fighting impossible odds, right? Because you have to get this separation to happen. So she eventually does get overwhelmed and captured by Bowser. Toadstools are rushing to Mario and Luigi. You have to help us. Our princess has been kidnapped. Luigi, of course, would be like, "What are you doing? What are you guys talking about? Peach just broke my brother's heart, and now you want him to go risk his life for her? Are you crazy?" Of course, while all this is happening, Mario would be hearing everything through like the open window or whatever. And this is kind of one of those kind of critical moments for the Mario Peach relationship, would be showing that Mario has enough strength of character and enough love for Peach to help her. Because just like how in the first movie we see this toxic love for Peach through Bowser, Bowser only ever wanted to be with Peach to satisfy his own needs, right? He didn't care about what Peach needed, he only cared about what he wanted. So this would be one of those reverse moments where you see the reverse. Mario just had his heart broken, so the last thing he'd want to do is go see the girl that just broke his heart. But this informs our movie's theme, that when you love someone, you will put their needs above your wants. Despite his heartache, Mario still loves Peach, so he mans up and sets off to help her. And that he loves her enough to help her despite the fact that, from his perspective, that there's nothing in it for him. He therefore is willing to put aside what he wants in order to help her, right? That's one of those old, oh man, look, this guy is growing as a character, all that. So at this point, you basically would have the movie kind of divided time once again between Peach in Bowser's Castle and Mario and the gang heading off to rescue Peach. Now, the Mario scenes would mostly just be there for, action fun, help with the movie's pacing, things like that. So even though the Mario stuff from here is still like half the remainder of the movie, not really going to talk about it anymore. It's just going to be your standard castle diving, boss fighting, Mario nostalgia filled goodness. But most of the character growth would occur on the Peach end. So, first off, the reason why you would have it that Peach can't just escape right away would be that Bowser has Toadette hidden somewhere, and if Peach tries to escape, Toadette's dead. When Peach gets to Bowser's castle, she has a very kind of grim moment where she realizes that, look, as far as she's concerned, it's over with Mario. Everything's ruined. She had her chance. Some weird thing flared up in her. It ruined the evening, and now she can't even go back tomorrow to explain things. It's lost. It's a lost cause as far as she's concerned. It's over. And because of that, she also would, of course, come to the conclusion no one's coming for her. There's no way Mario would come for her, right? I mean, come on. After what he just went through, she would just assume that it's up to her to get herself out. At this point, kind of the way I was thinking about it, I was like, okay, how does Peach get out? Now, the one thing I would not want to do, I don't want to give Peach a bunch of masculine traits and have her just punch her way out, beating people bloody. That's stupid. I think that Peach should use feminine traits to escape, because Peach is a starkly feminine character, and frankly, I think femininity gets underplayed in movies far too much. I think there's a lot of strength in it that gets unrecognized. So to me, the difference between masculine and feminine traits are that when it comes to influencing others, masculine traits tend to be about physically dominating other people to force them to do what you want. Well, I think feminine traits tend to be more about touching someone's heart to convince them to do what you want. Now, how do you express those strengths? This is where Bowser Jr. comes in. But first, let's address Bowser and kind of why he wouldn't just immediately marry Peach now that he has her. Bowser, he has his misguided, dumb idea that, oh, Peach, I realize I moved too quickly before. We're not ready for marriage. We need to try living together first. So in Bowser's twisted mind, he just brought Peach over so they can try living together. And then if that works, yeah, then they'll get married. Oh, wonderful. He's making such progress. I think that'd be rather hilarious. You could have a Bowser Peach duet, or Bowser constantly just trying to act like they're just an old couple living together and everything's fine when obviously this is like a horrific act of kidnapping. And I just think that would, there's a lot of comedy in all of that. But the more kind of emotional, impactful stuff would, of course, be Peach's relationship with Bowser Jr., which my general impression of Bowser Jr. has always been that he's not quite the sociopath that his siblings are. He's got a bit more of a childlike innocence to him, and that he genuinely likes Princess Peach. The Koopalings, they're just a bunch of sociopaths. So I would just portray them as, pretty rotten to the core. They'd be bullying Bowser Jr. for being a bit of a softy. They'd be using their quote mommy, Princess Peach, as just a servant, making her do whatever they want. But I think the key would be that Peach would see the seed of innocence in Bowser Jr. So what I think you do is you portray Bowser Jr. Not only does he have like this kind of kernel of kindness in him, you also show that he's actually kind of being bullied by his siblings, right? Kind of like the runt of the family. The rest of the Koopalings kind of look down on him. They kind of push him around. But Peach sees this seed of goodness in her, and she takes on a bit of a motherly role over him to help Bowser Jr. find his inner strength, to help Bowser Jr. find his courage to stand up for himself. So, in the end, it's her maternal influence on Bowser Jr. that provides her with the means of escape. She basically teaches him our movie's theme. If you truly love someone, you'll put their needs above your wants. And Bowser Jr. wants Princess Peach to stay, but he recognizes that she needs to go. She needs to be back with her people. And therefore, he would be willing to give her the one thing she needs to be able to escape, which is the location of Toadette. And now, with that new information, there's nothing stopping her. Peach goes, frees Toadette, and is able to escape herself. Now, at this point, you can't just let her just return to the Mushroom Kingdom, right? So instead, you have the Koopalings see Bowser Jr. helping her escape, and they give chase. You need to stop the scene somehow, so obviously you probably have them manage to shoot Peach down. Would make sense. She's never flown a clown car before. So they shoot her down, and because we've already established earlier that Peach is highly capable in a fair fight, obviously you kind of have to have something happen as her clown car crashes, right? Broken leg, whatever, right? Now she can't fight. So she really is at the mercy of the Koopalings. And this is important because this gives Bowser Jr. his opportunity to kind of fulfill his character arc, right? Because throughout the whole movie up till now, you see him being bullied by his siblings, being afraid of his siblings, being a bit of a softy. But now, through Peach's influence over the course of the movie, he has found that inner strength and he's willing to land and stand between his siblings and Peach. Even though it's impossible odds, he's going to stand up for his mommy and he's not going to let her get hurt. Now, obviously, Bowser Jr. can't win this fight. Bowser Jr. is not going to be able to beat all the Koopalings by himself. He'll give it a good go, but he will ultimately be defeated. And now it becomes really like that moment of desperation where they're holding Bowser Jr. down and they're beginning to drag Peach back to the castle. This would of course trigger Peach's panic attack, and just when things seem darkest, Mario and the gang jump in, which of course becomes this big moment emotionally for Peach, seeing Mario actually came to rescue her despite everything that happened, despite all of the misunderstandings and her essentially breaking Mario's heart on accident, but still breaking his heart, right? He's still willing to be there for her. Toad would give Peach like a green one-up mushroom, which would of course heal her leg, because why wouldn't it, right? So then you could have a big fun action scene at the end where the whole gang is finally reunited for one final battle with the Koopalings. And during this fight, of course, you would need to have one of the Koopalings would have to be like the ringleader Koopaling, right? The main one, maybe Lenny, I don't know. But Lenny, we'll call it Lenny. Lenny is like the one who was like leading a lot of the bullying against Bowser Jr. and being kind of the biggest jerk and the one kind of forcing Bowser Jr. to turn him into this person that he naturally just isn't. And of course, those two would have their own solo face off. This is the only fight that really matters here. Peach, Mario, the gang, kicking a bunch of Koopalings around. That's visceral, fun, just, oh, haha, eye candy stuff. But the emotional stuff, the stuff that matters, would be this fight between like Lenny and Bowser Jr., where Bowser Jr. can stick up for his mommy and he can stick up for himself. He can finally show, no, you know what? You guys are going too far. and I'm not going to stand for it any longer, right? So obviously Bowser Jr. wins. And when it's all over and they're all the Koopalings are tied up, and of course Bowser Jr. is there to take them back to the castle and tell the daddy how naughty they were being to mommy, right? And admittedly, I think Bowser would get pretty pissed to hear that his own kids broke Peach's leg. I mean, you know, that's not going to work well for his potential romantic futures. Oh, my kids broke your leg. You want to still date? All right. But, anyways, when the fight's over, Mario would just want to leave. He'd be like, okay, well, Peach, I hope you find what it is you're looking for in life. But, it's obviously not me. So I'm going to just go back to Brooklyn and you don't have to see me anymore. Right? Obviously, Peach would stop Mario and be like, we need to talk. And they have their little conversation. Now, you could just let it go and Peach explains it, and then they kiss and make up and everything's fine. I always prefer in these types of moments in movies where it's a bit of a struggle. Like, Peach is struggling to really explain this weird thing that's happened to her and why it triggered on Mario. And Mario's not understanding what she's trying to explain. Peach is kind of getting frustrated, throws caution to the wind, and just grabs Mario and kisses him. And that clears the matter up real fast, right? And then at that point, they all walk home together. I do think at the very end, because I like the idea of characters having vulnerabilities and then overcoming the vulnerabilities. So I do think it would be very appropriate if at the very end, Peach shows growth on that vulnerability. As they're about to go home, she would offer her hand to Mario to hold hands with her. And when Mario first grabs at her hand, you would see her arm tense up, but rather than pulling away from Mario, she would hold it steady, and then finally the hand would relax. And, oh, look, Peach, she has grown as a person as well. She's begun to show that she has the strength to overcome this trauma that she's had in her past, and that she can move past it and be a stronger person for it. So basically, that would be it. It's got some character growth, it's got some spice, a little romance. I don't know if Nintendo fans want a bunch of growth or if they just want to see Goombas and Wario and Luigi and just nostalgia references for a half hour. I'm not sure which one they'd want. Anyways, you'll never see this movie because it'll never get made, but that's what I would do.